Hey, this is Jules, and I'm your host of the Jules J Show. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm your host Jules of the Jules J Show. We want to give a big shout out to Tim Jackson. He's Track Cat's own. We call him Pops. He's actually working on his debut contemporary gospel album, so I will definitely let you know when it's available for listening, downloading, and purchasing. We also want to give a shout out to the entire Track Cat family for doing positive things. And with that, I want to make sure that all the fans and everybody that watches the show start taking inventory of individuals around you that are doing positive things, whether it's your neighborhood, your community, your church organization, your business, things of that nature. We want to start highlighting individuals on a monthly basis that's actually doing something positive in the community and making a difference. So all you have to do is send me their contact information and their story, whether they've overcome something, started a nonprofit organization, working with kids, things of that nature, to julesj1878@gmail.com. And on a monthly basis, we're going to pick one winner and we're going to award them something. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but we do want to start highlighting positive people doing positive things. So with that being said, we're actually going to go ahead and get into the topic of today, which is recently a federal judge has stated that the stop and frisk policy that has been something that the New York Police Department has been doing for such a long time is actually unconstitutional. Well, anybody that has been stopped and frisked without any reason, automatically, we knew that there was something wrong with this. We know that if we're just standing out on a corner hanging, having a conversation, and the police come and stop and frisk us for no apparent reason, we understood that our rights were being violated. But I'm not sure that a lot of people actually even know what rights or amendments were being violated to begin with. So let's go ahead and discuss the stop and frisk policy first, and then we're going to get into some of the actual amendments that were violated. First of all, the stop and frisk policy basically says that police officers who claim a reasonable suspicion that a person is involved in a felony can be stopped and searched them for any type of weapons. One question that pops up into my mind is, whose reasoning are we reasoning with? Like, is it the police officers? Is it the law? Is there anything that is, a black and white on paper type of reason? Or is it like typical individuals when people look at the same situation differently? So one police officer's reason for stopping and frisking somebody might be different from another person's reason for stopping and frisking somebody. So at what point in time does that become a gray area? Another thing is, a lot of people have stated that have been stopped and frisked that they are basically being targeted. It's racial. And the numbers actually support that. I pulled off a report from the 2011 findings from the New York Civil Liberties Union. And this is information that is very disturbing with this type of policy. And even though New York is being broadcasted on all type of media outlets and things like that, I'm pretty sure that this is not the only city that actually carries this type of behavior on as far as their law enforcement. So we definitely need to be mindful of who's doing this, what's going on, and letting, us stand up for something that is, unconstitutional, and is basically a violation of our rights as individuals and as American citizens. So basically, this policy started a long time ago, and these are just some of the facts. Now, mind you, this policy was implemented to basically take weapons and things of that type of stuff off of the streets. People that fit descriptions for violent crimes, things of that, repeat offenders, stuff like that. This is what this was implemented for, supposedly. 9 out of 10 people who stopped are totally innocent. And that means they were never arrested or received any type of ticket or citation. So basically, they just got frisked for no reason because the officer felt that there was a reason to do it. I would really like to know what the reason was. No gun is retrieved in 99.9% of the stops. So basically, after you stop and frisk, 99% of the time, you're not even getting a gun off the streets. You're not getting something that could kill somebody off the streets. You're patting them down to see what they have. And if you come across something, then you can arrest them. Like if you're patting somebody down and you come across, some weed or cocaine or things of that nature, you can arrest them for that type of stuff. So, what are you really looking for? Are you looking to meet your numbers and lock somebody up? Or are you really looking to do the community good and get some type of, weaponry off the street? What are your motives? We don't know at this point in time. And at this point in time, it doesn't matter because it is unconstitutional. And this is another thing that's really alarming to me. Though they account for only 4.7% of the city's population, Black and Latino males between the ages of 14 and 24 accounted for 41.6% of the stops in 2011. So although you take two culture populations, Black and Latino males, that are they account for the fewest in the city, yet they make up for 41.6% of the stops. If I was a person in the city of New York that got stopped, and if I was a Black and Latino male in that area that actually operated under this policy, like, you would have a lot of explaining to do. A lot. And not only that, now that it's found unconstitutional, if you could actually prove that you were stopped and frisked and you were an innocent individual and there was no reason for them to do it, I would probably be contacting a lawyer at this point in time because your rights have been violated. That's just, ridiculous. And once again, like I said, that this was supposed to, take weaponry off the streets. What are you taking off the streets? Basically, to me, it seems like you're just harassing Black and Latino males because you wear a badge and a uniform. And I'm not saying all police officers are like that, because there are some good police officers in uniforms that are really trying to make a difference. But then you got some of them that take their job to a whole nother level that they probably shouldn't have passed their psych eval and been wearing a badge walking the streets. And that's just the way it is. They abuse their power. They abuse their uniform. They abuse, their shield. And they're supposed to protect us, yet they're the ones that are violating us. So we need to understand basically what our rights are. So a question is, do you really know what rights or what amendments were violated with the stop and frisk policy that the city of New York had? If you don't, the first law or amendment that was violated was your Fourth Amendment. This is one of your basic amendments, and it is must have warrants for searches or seizures. Just like if you get pulled over by the police, and if they don't have a cause for suspicion, they have to ask your permission to search your car. You can tell them no. And if you tell them no without any reasonable reason why they, like, if they're not smelling weed or marijuana, or they don't see weed and cocaine and all that laying around, they just can't go looking for it. Now, if you have a gun sitting right there, and they can ask for your registration, but as long as you're valid and you have a registration, then it's no big deal. I mean, point blank, period. But just because they're wearing, a uniform, don't let them abuse that privilege. The next one is the 14th Amendment. This amendment basically is for citizenship, due process, and equal protection. They just can't come in and assume, oh, I'm going to pick, him and her and pat search them and frisk them to see what they may or may not have. You're entitled to a due process. You're entitled to, basically stand up for your rights. And this kind of goes back into, U.S. government and history and things like that. If you don't know your rights, and if you don't know your amendments, and you don't know what to stand up for, how can you stand up for anything? How can you be proactive about anything if you don't even know what you're standing up for? Are you standing up for something because you see a mass amount of people standing up for something? Or are you standing up for something because you understand what to stand up for? Can you understand that, you've been violated, or, your people have been violated? Or, do you just take it with a grain of salt and keep it moving? I was watching the news, and there was an individual, he had said that he had been stopped and frisked 7 different times. 7. If one's not bad enough, he's been frisked 7 different times. And each time he's been an innocent bystander who just happened to be, picked out of as a chosen one. How do you choose who to pick? How do you choose not to pick? Things of that nature. I'm just appalled that this actual policy was operating for so long. I mean, over a decade it was active, and now it takes a federal judge to finally step in and say, "Hey, this is unconstitutional." This is something that we've known for a long time. Why is it just now getting to this point? Because so many people have shown that this is basically a racial tactic. This is basically to clean up the streets. Well, whose streets are you cleaning up? Who are you taking off the streets? Who are you intimidating on the streets? So basically, the message that you're sending is, you know, a group of kids, regardless of, you know, what the content of the conversation is, a group of individuals just can't hang out on a public sidewalk. They just can't hang out and have a conversation like we used to do when we was growing up. They can't do that. Now they have to be on private property or indoors or things like that because they're at risk to being, you know, profiled and selected for a stop and frisk when they should have never been, this policy should have never been implemented to begin with. So once again, if you don't know your amendments, if you don't know what your rights are, now's the time to start figuring them out, because I can guarantee you there's going to be so many more issues and instances and policies and procedures that need to be changed, that need to be spoken about, that need to be highlighted, that need to be basically disbanded or, you know, no longer, you know, a valid policy, because it's just wrong. There's no other way of, you know, going around it. It's wrong. But if you don't know what's wrong and what's right, what are you going to stand up for? Are you going to just go with the crowd? You know, and it goes back to, you know, the old saying, are you going to jump off the bridge just because your friends are doing it? Or are you going to stand up for something that actually has some meaning? So there are some other things that, you know, a lot of people might not know. I was looking up the voting rights. The voting rights, you know, are states and federal things, but it's nothing that's in the Constitution. There is not one amendment that actually pinpoints voting rights, except for you have the 26th Amendment that changed voting rights to the age of 18, and then you have the amendment for that allows all men to actually vote, not just black men, but all men, that gives them the actual right to vote, and that's Amendment 15. And the other one is the Amendment 19, which gives women the right to vote. That's all. It's just giving them the right to vote. So this kind of goes back to understanding what your rights are. If you are a convicted felon, the state does not necessarily have to give you the right to vote. Matter of fact, there are only 2 states that have unrestricted laws about felons voting. And those 2 states are going to be Maryland and Vermont. So basically, if you're incarcerated, you're a convicted felon, things of that nature, especially if you're incarcerated, you can send in an absentee ballot. If you're not incarcerated, you can still vote. But for the states that you're living in and you are a convicted felon, you may lose that right permanently. And you think it's your right to vote. It's your right. But remember, the amendments does not say, hey, it's your right to vote. It just gives men and women the opportunity to vote. There's a big difference. So you need to definitely check into where you live at, what's going on in your state, to see if you can or cannot vote based on your felon status. And that's another thing. If you listen in the news lately, our Attorney General is saying that they are no longer going to give maximum or minimum mandatory sentences for individuals that are arrested for drug-related charges, which is great because a lot of our convicted felons are based off of drug charges. And with that being said, if you're a convicted felon with drug charges, you lose your right to vote, how are you going to make a difference? How are you going to put people in the office that make a difference? You got to stand up for your rights. You got to stand up for what is important to you. You got to stand up for what's important to your community. And you can't back down from being right, because when you're right, then you have nothing but, God behind you to make sure that, it's executed and things are pulled together and accordingly. It may not be an easy path, but if you're given the voice to actually address issues that are hurting our community, that are breaking our community down, that are disbanding our community, that are breaking our community to the point where there is nobody there to even care about the community, then it comes to a point in time where you got to stand up, because it just takes one person to start the movement. And then as you start that movement, more people will join in on the movement. And when you have forces with you, there will be change. There will be change. You see with the stop and frisk policies, there was a change in there. It took a mighty long time for it to happen, but you had people that didn't give up. And now it is no longer the case. You cannot be stopped and frisked. So with that being said, make sure you understand what's going on. Make sure that you understand what you can and cannot do, or what you have rights for and what you don't have rights for. And when you understand that and you pass that on to the next person and you share that knowledge with the next person, then that's just one more person doing something that's positive, that's right. And we're making a difference, and we're changing things that happens around us. So with that being said, like I said, understand your amendments, understand your rights, things of that nature. If you have any questions, concerns, you want topics that you want me to address, things of that nature, definitely hit me up, Jules J 1878. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.